we can get started with our seminar. So thanks to John and Samara for coming. So I'm going to introduce them. So we have John Lusin. He is the principal at IKM, has over 15 years of corporate higher education and healthcare experience, working on several technically complex projects for many institution clients. He has a variety of design and construction experiences. He is a graduate of a year-long community leadership program organized by Leadership Pittsburgh, Inc., LP 31. He has served on boards of numerous nonprofit organizations in the Western PA region. John focuses on working closely with workplace office sector clients and creating a client-centric process that involves all stakeholders in a solution. As a principal in charge, John will have overall responsibility for the project, ensuring IKM is responsive to the client and stays on schedule and budget. And we also have Samara Wheaton. Samara joined IKM in 2014 and has over 15 years of experience as a professional interior designer. She is a highly motivated, organized, and collaborative interior designer with extensive experience managing projects, utilizing industry-leading technologies, implementing a sustainable design, and creating innovative branded environments. As the interior designer, Samara will identify and creatively solve problems during programming and conceptual design phase in order to enhance the function and quality of interior environments by integrating practical, technical, and aesthetic factors. She is a graduate of Luma Institute System of Innovation Workshop, a 2-day workshop teaching a unique framework for practicing human-centered design to inspire innovation both internally and with other clients. So guys, I'll let you get started.
Allison, thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you to everybody for allowing us the opportunity to spend a couple minutes with you today. We're really excited. Samara and I are really excited to be here, and really looking forward to spending the next hour really talking about something that we're both very passionate about, which is not only designing spaces, but really touching people in terms of how they work and how they create, which I think is the passion that we both possess as designers. So we were going to do a quick poll question. Unfortunately, the poll thing isn't working, but I do want people to put in the chat. I want to ask a quick question just as an icebreaker to everybody. Your business that you'll be ultimately starting will have certain types of expenses. You know, your labor costs, your office or workspace costs, your software equipment costs. Where do you think that office space, office rent costs kind of ranks from 1 to 4? 1 being the highest and 4 being the least. So if you could just type into the chat like where you think that ranks. We'll see if we get anybody to do it. Okay, I see a couple 3s. Anybody else? Okay, thank you for everybody that did participate. So the answer is really, it's actually could be 3, but more or less you're going to see it around your labor being your most expensive cost as a business, and technically typically, and that labor also includes all your 401ks and health benefits and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of lump all that together. Office space actually typically is around your second biggest cost as an organization. So labor being typically your biggest, and your office space or workspace or rent for those types of spaces is typically in the number 2 position. It can vary from business to business depending upon your business and where you're at. So something that we're talking about, that we really want to kind of get into is the two, like one of the biggest things that really drives your business is your labor, right? And IKM has a kind of story in terms of how we really looked at ourselves and transformed ourselves as an organization, how we used our new office space that we designed for us. We moved in about 4 years ago to really kind of become a new corporate organization in a lot of ways. We're a 100-year-old firm. We're about 60 people. We have offices in Pittsburgh and in Cleveland. But we were kind of in a position where we were like a tired firm. We had been in a space that we had been working in since the 1980s. Architecture, it had changed dramatically. And it wasn't really a space that was really making us innovative. It wasn't giving us the opportunity to cultivate new ideas. And the worst part of that space was we weren't able to attract people to come work for us. And that was our biggest problem, was that we weren't able to get talent. So as an organization, I became a principal in the firm several years ago. We sat down as an organization and said, how can we do this? How can we reinvigorate our organization? We had the opportunity to move to a new space, so we jumped on it. And in order to do that, though, we really looked at, like, what does really ICAM really mean as an organization? And how do we want a space that helps to kind of initiate that kind of innovation and transformation that we need to go through as an organization? So we know today that we're really speaking to a group of people who are really, you guys are innovators, you're entrepreneurs, you're thinking about how am I going to be, you're going to build your business, how you're going to build your company moving forward. And a lot of that comes with risk taking. And the risk taking that you're going to take initially will also be the risk that you'll pass through to people that come work with you, your partners initially, and then ultimately your employees as well. Because everybody kind of takes a risk going to a company, and in some ways, and it accepts some of the risks that the company's taking on. But that's the exciting part of it, right? So part of that, I think, is you're also looking to build a culture at your organization that helps to establish yourself and what you're trying to do as a company and what you're trying to do as an organization. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, we faced at IKM was, we had to recruit and retain talent. Everybody right now is in a talent war. We're looking for opportunities to be able to bring the best talent to our organization and be able to, invigorate ourselves and take us to the next level, take us to that place that we envision, as an organization that we want to get to. And that takes time, but it also takes people in order to be able to do that. So when you have, again, that culture that you're trying to establish with the talent that you're trying to attract and retain, where does that happen, right? Right now, we're talking about that happening physically in a space. That's where people come together. That's where ideas can be shared and ideas can be created, and be able to really find a way to build that organization, that company. So today we're going to talk a lot about how do you do that? How do you infuse a company's mission, vision, and values into a physical space so that when people come and work for you in your company, they're experiencing that company in that physical space.
So John just mentioned about mission, vision, and values. As entrepreneurs creating startups, you're going to want to look for a mission and then create a vision for your company and your culture and your employees so that they have a drive to want to work there, and have some supporting, values that are instilled. So we really need to be able to understand that as we work with you and dissect that with you to understand what is really important to you and how can we interpret what is important to you into a workspace. These are very tough questions. Sometimes you don't know this right off the bat as a startup. Sometimes you do. Sometimes this is established, as we work through some of these visioning sessions that we'll talk about a little bit later, that as designers and architects, we work with companies and put together these visioning sessions to talk about these important goals and building these visions and what is the guiding principles that are driving your company. So we talk about that, and then we talk about how it's going to relate to your company culture, and really understanding what that means and basically how you want to work. Do you want to be fun and engaging? Do you want to be down to the books and very focused, and that's what you want your culture to be? But as entrepreneurs and future CEOs and future leaders and leadership, these are decisions that you'll have to make. And this is what drives a company from, 5 people to 10 people to 100 people to 1,000 to, thousands of people. What is the company culture? I work at a certain company because of that culture. I like that culture. It is one of the main things that attracted me to the company. It was a recruitment tool. I'm sure you hear about it all the time. But what you don't typically hear is how that culture needs to be in the built environment as well as what you're talking about. So you can go out and you work with your venture capitalists and talk about, this is our company culture, this is what we want it to be. But then you need to design a place where your employees and your staff and people that you will call your family work and experience that culture. And that's where there will be value in hiring design professionals to help you do that. So we will help understand what your culture is, and dissect that with you. And through these visioning sessions that I had previously talked about, we'll make sure that all voices are heard. So we'll put together groups and we'll make sure that we're hearing from the leadership of your company, as well as maybe financial investors and what is important to them, and really kind of understanding what that culture needs to be. So we talk a lot about listening and understanding, but how are we going to do that? So how are we going to work with you to get this information? So we do a lot of human-centered design. It's basically, we're listening and doing activities with you to extract that information to understand more about your company. These are a set of tools that we use to get this information. This is where we crowdsource ideas. This is basically a way of understanding unspoken needs. This helps us understand your culture, and then we translate your words and conversations into a built environment and design. I wanted to kind of go through a couple exercises that we do with you, and we talk about bringing groups together. So, we bring, your company together and work through this. So one of the exercises we do is we develop a chart and we plot items, and we develop the relative importance of these items. What is the most achievable and what is the most achievable in a period of time? So whether it's an immediate need, as maybe just supplying additional printers or 3D printers, or maybe it's something over time, maybe it's a long-term need, maybe it's providing an actual built makerspace that's fully designed. So we help you understand how to prioritize your needs into a workspace design. Another concept that we use is called rose, thorn, bud, and that's basically identifying a technique for positive things, negative things, and then identifying things that have potential. So we use this with you when we look at your workspace. Sometimes we talk about different options for those workspaces. So maybe you're looking at some options in, let's say certain locations. Let's just give an example. Maybe Bakery Square looks good just locally versus Lawrenceville versus the Strip District. So we could put all those together and put you together some options. And then we can work with your group to identify, these are the positives for some of the spaces, these are the negatives for some of the spaces, and these are what we really see being potential areas for growth or for expansion for some of those areas. And this really helps us understand how to design your space better. We also do a round robin activity where we bring everybody together, as I had previously talked about, and we ask questions, just leading questions like, how might we incorporate a better cafe design, or how might we engage in collaborative areas or incorporate wet labs, or how might we, maximize the space that you currently have or look for expansion. And then we bring together multiple people and talk about those different ideas. And as you get those different groups together, they start to evolve. So somebody talks about, well, we may do this, and then somebody kind of tags onto that conversation, but we think about doing this as well. Or somebody talks about, well, maybe there's a possibility for this, and then it starts to evolve into a different conversation or different ideas or different ideations. I think it's important to go through some of these exercises and really it helps us understand where your company is as far as the mission, the vision, you know, your culture, understanding you as you work and your work style. You're on mute, John. It would happen once, just once.
I love Zoom. One of the things that I think, you know, is building blocks for any type of organization is really the first big question is, where are you going to be, right? I mean, that's a big question to ask. It's different if you just say, I'm going to locate my company in Pittsburgh versus I'm going to locate my company in Tokyo, right? Much big decisions on that end. So those are some of the bigger talks that you'll probably have as an organization, you know, early on, to say, where do you need to be? Where am I going to be able to, again, be able to capture talent that's going to help push my organization forward? After you really kind of make those decisions, and it's really looking at, okay, what are the types of spaces that I need? You know, if you're doing, you know, if it's more of a service industry type of business, obviously you're looking for office spaces or areas to collaborate. If you're actually building a product, then, you know, having a manufacturing space or art research and development spaces are really important as well. So those are all the things that you kind of have to think about up front. It's like, number one, where do I want to be geographically, because this gives me the best opportunity to succeed. And then number two, what type of spaces am I really looking for as an organization? And then obviously there's budget. There's going to be budgets on top of this, right? You're going to have so much money to spend on this type of move. You know, in designing a workspace is one of your biggest costs you're going to have in your business, other than your labor. Actually doing that one event is going to be one of the bigger events that you're going to have for the life of that business. So, and then also talk about growth too. Like, again, you know, Samara talked a little bit about it. If you're going to grow from 5 to 50 to 500 within 6 months to a year, that's a big deal. And anybody that has to go through that type of growth spurt in that short period of time really needs to have a plan in place on how to do that. And part of that plan is also to look at a physical space to see how you would accommodate that type of growth. So. Excuse me. The other thing that, you know, there's, you know, how do the program needs that you need for that is specific space, right? And a lot of that is about amenities, right? What's going to bring people into work? How are they working? You know, again, we talked a little bit about, you know, if it's more of a, you know, working at a desk versus working on a lathe, that's a different types of working. But the amenities that those employees need are also important too, and things that you should really consider. You know, transportation preferences. Again, it's about, like, where do you locate? Do you locate in a central business district? Do you locate out near the airport? You know, all those aspects, again, talk about where do you position that company? But also for the amenities for the employees as well, for parking. You know, what are the food and drinks, you know, food and drink opportunities, either within the office or around the area that you're locating in. And now I think nowadays now is, and we'll talk a little bit more about post-COVID, but health and wellness becoming a really big, important thing now for companies to really embrace. Again, part of that attraction and retention of talent is to keep healthy employees as well. And there's a lot of ways that you can look at how you do that, but that's going to should be a consideration for anything that you're looking at in terms of spaces. So, you know, we did talk again that, you know, that workspace and that build out of that workspace is going to be one of the bigger cost events that you will have in your business. And part of that is to really look at, you know, do I need to renovate a space or should I build new? And that's a big question for any company. And again, that goes with where I want to locate and where the budgets that I have to work within as well. And we did talk a little bit about, you know, building in that future growth. If you think you're going to be expanding quickly, you need to build that in up front. It's easier to do that versus the cost of having to do that after the fact. And we actually had that happen at IKM. We moved into a space that was roughly around 15,000 square feet. We thought we would fill it out with, and we had built in some growth. We thought we would fill it out within 5 years or so. We filled it out within a year and a half, and then we had to go back to the building and ask for more space at that point, which again had a cost associated with it, doing that after the fact. So, you know, we were excited about the growth, but at the same time, we probably could have done a better job of planning in that sense. And also planning for the cost of doing that with hiring a design professional. Typically, a design professional cost for designing a space is usually around 5 to 8% of your construction budget that you may have for a project. So that's just kind of a good rule of thumb to use, is that maybe 5 to 8%. We obviously like more of an 8%, but at the same time, we understand that people have certain needs that they have to fulfill on the budgetary side. So we're willing to work through any of those cost variations. And again, I think we really, we're one of the roles of the design professional is to really get involved with you as early as possible, because we think we have the best opportunity to help be your partner through this type of growth that you're going through. And we can look at, again, we do this with companies that are national. I mean, they have offices all over the country, and we have the ability to be able to sit down and say, and work with them to say, let's right size this space for your needs for your company. So design professionals do that all the time. But the earlier that we're involved with you, the more success I think that we will be able to have with you, and the project will be able to have moving forward.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the role of a designer and what we actually do. So, obviously we're here to help you, build your workspace, but I wanted to kind of take a step back from that and let you know that as we gather all this information about your culture and about your mission and vision, and understanding who you are as we work with you, and John says the earlier the better. I think this even reinforces, we need to understand who you are so we can interpret it in your workspace. So we are very mindful when we start to select materials and what those materials actually mean for your built environment. We talk about branding, what are you going to become, and how can the materials support that? Is it a certain branding that we need to work throughout your space and really support that culture that you want to build, and in that company that you want to build as you look to expand. Interior renovations, they are in multiple different locations. So sometimes you're in a warehouse, sometimes you're in a high rise, sometimes you're in a strip mall. Sometimes you're in a variety of areas, but how is that brand interpreted if you do happen to grow, into other cities, nationally, internationally? That is reflected in the material selection that starts at the very beginning of a project, and that's one of the jobs that we will help you do. We can also help you be very. Let me take a step back here. We're very mindful when we select finishes. Let me give you an example here. Say sustainability is very important for, your company or your mission. We'll do extra research and propose finishes that are very eco-sensitive and very sustainable for the built environments. And we've done that with many clients before. We want to make sure that any kind of visuals that you're seeing within your office are reflective of your company and your culture. So just to know that we think that out very thoughtfully when we select them, and we review those with you, and we get input, and it's definitely a collaborative process that we like to go through. So John talked a little bit about, what do architectural and design services cost? So they cost between 4 and 8% of the construction costs. But what are you getting for that? What you are getting is not tangible. You can't just hold it and say, this is what you're getting. So we wanted to explain to you exactly what you'll be paying for. So I'm going to go through some of the phases that you will be paying for as it relates to the design process. So first is the programming phase. And that is a certain period where we do those visioning sessions and we understand what your company wants to be and understand the mission and vision and really kind of reflect with you on what you want and where you want to go. Then we move into the schematic design phase, which is really where we take all that information we got and we start to put together a design. We explore different options on locations, and we just kind of work with different workspaces and see how they'll fit together. It's also something that we can do with budgeting at this point. We like to kind of overlay that. So that's schematic design. Design development goes a little bit above and beyond. That's where we get into some details on finishes and fabrics and carpets and ceilings and walls and doors. That's where we really need to understand your built environment and what that is going to cost. So that is being put together in the design development stage of the project. And these stages can last a couple weeks or they can last a couple months depending on the size of a project. So if it's a very small project, all these phases could last maybe 2 months. If it's a larger project, sometimes they last years. It varies on the size. The next phase of the project is construction documents, and that's where we put together the drawing package. And the drawing package is what we're going to give to a builder to build your space. So that is the actual drawings that will be translated into your built environment. So after that happens, you think, well, where does the architect go? Are they just gone at that point? And no, you're actually going to buy construction administration services. So we are your advocate. We are there. We've worked with you on programming. We understand your company. We understand your mission and vision. We are there to make sure that what you wanted in the design actually gets built. So that is the construction administration process, where your physical space is being built by the builder, and we're making sure that everything goes smoothly, and we're advocating for you. So we'll be there working with you and working with the builder to, answer questions that arise and answer any concerns, anything that needs to change, in the field, just kind of working through that and working as a team collaboratively. There's also an additional service that you will buy. It's called closeout / occupancy. And that's where we basically hand you over some manuals, and it says how to clean your carpets, because these are new carpets to you and you wouldn't know how to do that. Or how to take care of writable surfaces that, you've placed throughout your space to be collaborative, but you don't know how to take care of them. So we will basically put together a whole manual, and we, you can talk through this with us, but we're here to answer questions on all of that information and understand questions on how appliances work in your space and what that really means. So that is the package of services that you buy with that 4 to 8%.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the post-COVID world that we're entering into, and obviously, we're advocates obviously for the built environment. We're advocates for businesses that have physical spaces. We know that there's a lot of discussions, including we're doing that right now in our own corporation, about what does the role of the office play in, or the workspace play moving forward, especially in professional services like ours. Those are tough questions to ask, and every business is going to have to ask that question and be able to come up with the answer that makes sense for that business. Our take on it, though, is that again, looking at talent and how you merge talent with culture, there's some, you can look at it in terms of how you do that virtually, but also I think we advocate for the fact that I think it's better to do that physically sometimes. And I know every corporation, every organization has a different kind of take on that. But our advocation and the place that we stand is that you, again, the workspace is where you experience the mission and vision values of an organization. So bringing talent in and retaining talent, there's still a need, I think, for the workspace to be for any type of organization. Now, is it, 9 to 5 Monday through Friday? Potentially not. But again, every business has to kind of ask that question. We're still, again, that our advocacy though is that that's where that needs to happen. What we can say though moving forward though is that I think it will change every workspace. You have to plan for flexibility now. I think you have to think about, what's the next pandemic and how does my space work for the next pandemic, whether I'm doing it again as an office space or as a manufacturing or as research and development. We cannot go through what we went through the last year. We're going to have to change as a culture and also change as organizations to be able to think about how to do that. And as we spoke before, health and wellness is still going to be a really important thing moving forward. So to create spaces that are healthy, that happens both at the design side, but also at the for the occupant that has to come up with some organizational kind of procedures to be able to do that more effectively. So, and those are all the things I think that we can work with you as business owners to really kind of think about how do we do that moving forward. So.
I just wanted to tag on here, John talks about the healthy environments. That could be related to your HVA systems and just kind of looking at that with our engineers and creating those healthy environments. Healthy environments also consists of, providing healthy snacks too, or, to your company employees. So it's a little bit different way of thinking about that response. I did want to respond to a chat question that kind of relates to this. The question was, for cost-sensitive startups, do you think co-working spaces and remote first are good options? And John had touched a little bit on this. Company culture and cultivating that culture is very important in a physical workspace. So co-working spaces are great for that. I mean, we see tons of co-working spaces popping up all around. I know John and I are working with some over in the Ohio area, looking to expand to the Pittsburgh area because of the need for these startups. So I think the co-working spaces are great. I think even a co-working combination of remote first, doing that a little bit of like a 50-50 or like a 30-80. So maybe you're only in the office for 3 days a week, and that brings your costs down so you don't have to pay that rent. I know those co-working spaces offer those options for that flexibility. And definitely ask questions in the chat. We have a couple more things that we wanted to go over, but I know we'll get around to some questions if you have any.
Yeah, just to add on to the co-working, it's also an issue of scale as well. So, when you're employee 1, employee 2, employee 5, co-working probably has some merit in that sense. When you start to get to a larger size organization that may need, again, to have more of a locus, a center point, which could be that office, could be that workspace. I think that's when the co-working maybe needs to start to fall away and you have to look at other options. Again, a lot of this is all up to that organization specifically and how they want to work. And if you're opening multiple offices in multiple places because you're trying to gain talent in different places, the co-working does have a lot of value. And we're actually seeing that in our own business as well. So in conclusion, we're going to transition over to show you some of the tools that we use, but I want to just kind of wrap up this end of it and really talk about, we're an advocate for you. We're an advocate for your organization, and we really want, we want our services help position your company to succeed. And we have tools that we really use to help you visualize what that future is going to look like. Just the way that you visualize how your business is going to look in the future, we want to help you visualize what that environment that you want to create for your staff, your employees, your partners, all that type of stuff. Because again, we do take the position that the physical space still has an importance in any type of organization, especially once you grow to a certain level. So we really take that seriously. Again, we are, an opportunity to bring us in, at the earliest we had the most impact for you and your organization moving forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Samara. She's going to show just a couple of the tools that we use, and then we'll open up for general questions at that point.
Sure. So we wanted to go over just some of the digital whiteboard tools that we use. We talked a lot about the exercises that we use to understand your company, but obviously some of your people in your company may not all be local. They may be, you know, national or international. The digital whiteboard's a great tool that we can use as we spitball ideas. We talk about precedent images. This is a tool that is collaborative. We share this with you, so you have access to this, so you can put information on here, we can put information on here, and we can work together as a team to kind of fully vet some of these ideas. I think what's great is that, you know, we look at what we call, you know, your workspace. And if, just for instance, you know, if you're thinking, you know, you want your lobby to go over here and we've placed it over here, it's great that you can go in there and move it and change it and say, I like it over here and this would be great. So as architects and designers, we love to write on things. We love to sketch things. We love to write on the walls. As we've gone to more of a virtual world, this is a great collaborative tool if we can't be in person. We do still like to be in person when possible, and hopefully we will get back to that. But this is one of the tools that we use to kind of talk about our process and go through it. It's a great opportunity. You can see here, you know, looking at starting to design your space. We go through some of the iterations of just kind of doing still renderings and talking about your space and saying, you know, is this what you're thinking? Is this going to function great? But one of the best tools that we use, and I will give you an example here, is virtual technology. So looking at what we're calling a floor plan is very two-dimensional. You don't really understand what you're seeing three-dimensionally, but this is how we're designing your space. So what you're seeing here is our drawings. This is coming out of a drawing set, but this is how we design. So I want to give you an example. We worked with a client previously, and they really wanted a kitchen, and they wanted it to be up against a wall. And we really felt that the kitchen didn't belong up against the wall. It belonged in the center as a feature and a focal point to help the views throughout the space. There was a nice window wall and great views down a main street, and they didn't understand that from a floor plan. But when we put them in the space, as you're seeing here, they got it. They saw it. They saw the experience of how they're going to walk through. So what you're seeing here is what architects and designers build. This is your space. This is what you're paying for. And this is a tool that will help us collaborate with you and understand your needs. So if you're looking for lab space to be over here or more visibility, this is a great tool that we can show to you, and we can change real time and even pan around. So those are some of the virtual tools that we use just to help collaborate. We wanted to kind of take a little bit of time for some questions, if you had any. You can just place them in the chat, or I know it's a small group, so you can come off mute and ask your questions. We do have VR tools as well. I know somebody had asked that in the chat. So once we are in person again, we can bring those VR tools to you, and you can be in your space as well.
I'm also curious. Yeah, can I ask a quick question? I'm curious how you usually work with companies. Is it per hour, or is it per project, or does it depend on the company?
It really does depend on the company. So we typically will do a fee for a project, which would be the whole project. And again, Samara kind of talked about the parameters of what we do from kind of A to Z. But typically, what we do an hourly fee would be for maybe some small studies for people, because we just don't know what the cost may ultimately be. And then usually for some of our more repeat clients that we do that we have like kind of service agreements with, we will get into more of an hourly basis. But we do see the value, I think, in you know, the fee for the project is all encompassing. So we really, when we do a project, it's typically a fee for service in that sense.
I also wanted to add that you don't need to buy the whole package of design services. So if you're looking for just a little programming study, or you know what you want, you just want to build it, you can also just buy construction documents. You can buy certain phases of that as well.
Yeah, the value I think we have is more about about creating relationships, right? And so creating a relationship with, you know, you create a relationship with your hairdresser, right? I mean, over time, right? I mean, we want to have relationships where we, you know, build trust between people, and that trust then ultimately leads to great things and great ideas and great design. So we want to have that type of relationship with somebody. So.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. I'm also curious if you are open to elaborating a little bit on what kind of services, because it seems that you have a menu and that it can go from like little piece by piece consulting to fully blown project. So could you maybe elaborate to like pin down what belongs to the group?
Well, I think again that Samara talked about the conceptual programming all the way through construction administration. So it's really the life of the project is really our kind of our core service groups that we do. When you start to separate that out a little bit, though, that's where we can have value in terms of bringing us in. One of the things that I don't think we talked about is that we also can be an advocate for you in the sense that if you're looking at 2 or 3 different places that you want to locate your company in, you can bring a designer along with you to look at those spaces and actually do what we call test fits to actually look and see, does the program that we really have work with the space that we really like, right? Because you're always kind of looking at, and it's hard for people to kind of sometimes visualize that. It's not at this level of detail, but we can do that very quickly to tell you whether a space works for you or doesn't work for you at that end. So,
yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's a question in the chat for an early stage startup. Custom spaces don't really make sense. How do you know when a good idea is to set up a space like this? So I wanted to talk a little bit about different options. So we talk a lot about the built environments, but that doesn't mean built walls. Sometimes it's all furniture solution. Sometimes you just need to invest in a big white box and do a little bit of furniture solutions if you're looking to expand and you don't want to invest in built walls and built doors and anything custom at that point. That way you have a flexible furniture solution that you can start to cultivate that culture and your company in, and then see how it evolves. And that's much less of a commitment in the, I would say, fully vetted, you know, architectural interior renovation services. And we do that a lot too. So we, you know, as interior designers, we put together furniture packages. Sometimes, you know, you say, I have this much of a budget, you know, can you make it work? And we do that. We work with you and we figure out what kind of spaces do you want? Can we do this all in a furniture solution? And that's much less custom.
Yeah, I also think it's about figuring out, again, the trajectory of your company and where you're going to grow to. You know, we did talk about the co-working. The co-working, I think, makes sense up to a certain scale. The solution that Samara just kind of talked about makes sense up to a certain scale. So again, understanding the arc of where your company's going and how you're going to grow and expand helps, again, to have somebody like a professional designer on, you know, working with you to kind of talk through those concepts. And those are the things that we can figure out at those very earliest stages is like, you know, if you're going to, again, if you're going to grow from 5 to 50 to 500 in that 6-month period, that has a big impact on the type of places that you're looking. And obviously when you're trying to do that on a budget, you have to be able to grow into that space, not only, you know, from a budget perspective as well. So having those conversations up front and starting to lay out a plan of attack in order to be able to seamlessly be able to transition your company into a space, I think makes a lot of sense.
I don't know if that answered your question or if you have any additional questions about that. If there's any other questions, you're welcome. These are good questions.
I don't know, Samara, it might be good. So,
Okay.
well, again, I do want to say thank you. Again, thank you to Allison. Thank you to everybody for having us here today. We really appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you. Hopefully, you were able to get something out of this time with us. Again, we do design. We are design advocates. We advocate for good design. We advocate for design that helps people and is focused on people. I think more than anything else, and that's what we do. Is again, that's the value I think we bring to any project that we touch. So, but again, thank you so much, and we wish you all definitely the best of luck with your future entrepreneurship. So.
Yes, and I would say thank you as well. If you have any questions or need any advice, please feel free to reach out. Like John said, we're happy to advocate for you and answer any of those questions that you have.
Okay, thank you guys for coming. This was great.